The Grand Library of FluffTown, usually a sanctuary, now thrummed with disquieting, pervasive noise. Pages turned with an exaggerated, almost violent slap against the heavy, aged paper. Whispers, once gentle secrets, now carried like shouts, echoing through the vast, ornate halls. Every cough, every chair scrape, amplified into a jarring intrusion, shattering all concentration. Students, their brows furrowed in frustration, packed their bags with agitated, swift movements. Their eyes darted nervously, unable to find a single pocket of peace within the sprawling edifice. Irritation bloomed on their faces, a collective annoyance at the persistent, invasive clamor. They sought refuge in the quietude that once defined this hallowed, knowledge-filled space. But the quiet had vanished, siphoned away by an unseen, insidious hunger within the walls. Moss, with his unique sensitivity, felt the very building itself drinking the surrounding calm. He sensed a strange, ethereal siphon pulling serenity from the air, leaving only agitated echoes. The stones seemed to hum with a low, predatory satisfaction, a subtle tremor beneath his boots. A chill permeated the air, not of temperature, but of an absence, a void where tranquility once resided. The grand arches, once silent witnesses, now seemed oppressed down with oppressive, audible weight. He watched a young scholar slam a book shut, a look of utter defeat clouding her weary features. The library, a labyrinth of thought, had become a chamber of maddening. Inscapable resonances, even the dust motes danced in the air with an agitated, almost panicked shimmer in the light. A palpable tension hung heavy, a silent scream trapped within the noisy, echoing architecture. Moss knew this was no ordinary malfunction. Something deeper, hungrier, had awoken here. The air itself vibrated with a stolen peace, leaving the mind frantic, unable to grasp silence. The Fix-It crew arrived, their presence a stark contrast to the library's agitated inhabitants. Luma's keen eyes scanned the ornate ceilings, searching for the source of this unsettling sonic theft. Pax, ever pragmatic, ran a hand along a towering bookshelf, feeling its subtle, unsettling vibration. Stitch, usually humming, found his internal rhythm disrupted by the pervasive, unwelcome din. Tick, his internal clock precise, felt the library's rhythm pulling at his own. A strange, temporal tug. The marble floors, usually cool and reflective, now seemed to absorb sound with a greedy, dark hunger. Each step they took resonated too loudly, violating the very essence of a place of contemplation. The very act of breathing felt amplified, an intimate sound made public, violating personal space. Moss gestured towards a wall, his expression grim, indicating the heart of the library's stolen quiet. The building hummed with an unnatural energy, a low, persistent thrum beneath the audible chaos. This was a place where thoughts were meant to flourish. But now, only agitation could take root. The crew braced themselves, ready to confront the insidious force draining the library's very soul. Luma began her meticulous inspection, her gaze sharp, dissecting every architectural detail with practiced ease. She ran her fingers along the intricate carvings, noticing a subtle, imperceptibly discontinuity in the plaster. Behind a grand, ancient tapestry, she discovered a section of wall where insulation had been removed. The removal was impossibly clean. No dust, no torn fragments, as if dissolved by an unseen, precise hand. It appeared as though the soundproofing had simply vanished, leaving a hollow, echoing void in its wake. The exposed cavity felt unnaturally cold, a pocket of absolute silence within the general clamor. Luma frowned, tracing the edges of the missing material, noting the surgical precision of its extraction. This wasn't neglect or decay. It was a deliberate, calculated act, an architectural excision of quiet. Pax, meanwhile, examined the deeper recesses of the wall, his strong fingers probing the exposed brick. He found strange, faint tool marks etched into the mortar, distinct and unnervingly uniform in pattern. They resembled claw marks, yet far too precise, too deliberate for any creature of natural origin. The marks suggested a tool designed not to destroy, but to extract, to meticulously unmake the structure. A shiver ran down his spine. The marks spoke of an intelligence, a methodical process beyond human craft. The very stone seemed to recoil from his touch, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor running through it. These weren't random scratches. They were signatures of a system, a blueprint of removal itself. Tick, always attuned to temporal anomalies, noticed a peculiar pattern in the library's fluctuating noise. He observed that the pervasive shin would briefly, almost miraculously, recede at precise moments. The quiet would return, a sudden, blessed hush, lasting only a few fleeting seconds. Exactly at 3:33. This happened not once, but repeatedly, a rhythmic gulping of silence, timed with uncanny regularity. His watch, usually a steady companion, seemed to stutter, momentarily catching the library's strange pulse. The air would thicken then, a momentary vacuum, before the noise rushed back in with renewed ferocity. It was as if the library itself was taking a breath, a deep, silent inhale, before exhaling its chaos. Stitch, his ears keenly sensitive, detected a faint, high-pitched hum emanating from deep within the walls. This hum was almost subliminal, a constant, underlying frequency that subtly grated on the nerves. It felt like a low, predatory growl, a hungry vibration that resonated with the missing quiet. The crew exchanged concerned glances. This wasn't merely a structural issue. It was something alive. The library, a vessel of knowledge, was actively consuming its own essence, its very purpose. Moss felt a prickling sensation, as if the building watched them, calculating their every move. The atmosphere grew heavy with unspoken questions, the air thick with the library's strange, hungry breath. They understood this required more than simple repair. It demanded an understanding of the library's will. The stolen quiet wasn't just gone. It was being stored, perhaps even digested, by the living architecture. Luma theorized the 3:33 interval was a feeding cycle, a moment of respite before the next consumption. Pax examined the claw marks again, their precision unnerving, hinting at a specialized, hidden mechanism. Stitch traced the humming sound, trying to pinpoint its source, a pulse within the ancient stone. Tick noted the exact timing of the quiet's return, a brief window of vulnerability in the library's cycle. They realized the soundproofing wasn't just removed. It was systematically unmade, its essence absorbed. The library was not broken. It was operating precisely as something else now intended it to function. This new function involved the deliberate eradication of peace, replacing it with unsettling, pervasive noise. The quiet was a resource, a stolen commodity, now consumed by the very structure designed to preserve it. Each missing panel, each precise claw mark, spoke of a grand, unsettling design at play here. The air grew colder, a chill of understanding settling upon the crew as they pieced together the puzzle. The library was a predator, its silence a stolen trophy, its noise a weapon against concentration. They felt the weight of countless unread thoughts, of ideas suffocated by the pervasive, relentless The building seemed to observe them, its ancient stones holding a watchful, calculating gaze. Their mission was clear: restore the quiet, and in doing so, restore the minds of FluffTown's scholars. But first, they needed to understand the true extent of the library's insidious, architectural hunger. As they moved deeper, a new phenomenon presented itself, subtle yet profoundly disorienting. Bookshelves, heavy with ancient tomes, subtly shifted their positions when no one was directly observing them. A momentary glance away, then back, revealed a slight alteration, a new angle, a blocked passage. Intaya Airu, once open and inviting, now seemed to twist and narrow, deliberately obstructing access. The wooden frames groaned faintly, a low, structural sigh as they rearranged their labyrinthine paths. It was a slow, organic migration, the architecture itself becoming a living, defensive mechanism. Certain sections, once easily accessible, now lay hidden behind walls of newly assembled volumes. The crew experienced moments of spatial disorientation, the library's layout subtly, unervingly changing. Books seemed to slide from their places, then reappear elsewhere, creating an impossible, fluid geography. On specific subjects, the printed labels on the shelves began to subtly fade, dissolving into the wood. Titles like Foundation, Exit, and Origin were particularly affected, their letters blurring into oblivion. It was a deliberate act of erasure, the library attempting to scrub away inconvenient truths from its own memory. The knowledge contained within these specific tomes was being actively suppressed, removed from public view. The shelves acted as gatekeepers, their shifting forms denying access to forbidden, critical information. Stitch, his ears keenly sensitive, heard a faint rustling from deep within the shifting stacks. It sounded like dry paper, hundreds of pages rubbing together, but with a sinister, almost whispering quality. He imagined countless paper teeth gnawing at the very fabric of knowledge, devouring inconvenient facts. The sound was unnerving, a soft, insistent murmur that seemed to emanate from the library's very core. This living architecture was not merely changing. It was actively guarding secrets, burying truths beneath its shifting mass. The crew felt the library's intelligent resistance, a conscious effort to obscure their path to discovery. The air grew heavy with the weight of unread secrets, of knowledge deliberately hidden from seeking minds. They moved with caution, navigating the ever-changing aisles, aware of the library's watchful, shifting gaze. Moss felt the building's intent, a silent, stubborn refusal to yield its most guarded, dangerous truths. The fading labels were a clear signal, a desperate attempt to erase any path leading to the Foundation. They understood the library was not merely broken. It was compromise, an agent of suppression. Every shift, every rustle was a calculated move in a silent, architectural game of hide-and-seek. Luma noted the patterns of the shifts, trying to predict the library's next move, its next concealment. Pax tested the stability of the moving shelves, finding them surprisingly robust, anchored by unseen forces. Tick observed that the shifts often coincided with the moments of returning noise, a subtle, synchronized dance. Stitch tried to discern a rhythm in the paper, rustling, a hidden language within the library. Issa Octobudasaito. Suddenly, with a soft, unsettling thud, a heavy, leather-bound book tumbled from a high shelf. It landed open on the dusty marble floor, its pages splayed, revealing an unexpected, chilling inscription. The crew froze, their gazes drawn to the ancient, yellowed page, now illuminated by a single shaft of light. There, in elegant, flowing script, was a narration of their current actions, unfolding in real time. It described Luma's startled gasp, Pax's rigid stance, Stitch's hand hovering near his tools. The text continued, detailing Moss's thoughtful frown, Tick's quick glance at his synchronizing watch. A cold dread seeped into the air as they realized the book was writing their story, as they lived it. The words on the page called them maintenance spirits, curious entities attempting to mend the broken world. It spoke of their relentless quest for truth, their unwavering determination against unseen, formidable forces. Luma's hands began to shake uncontrollably, a tremor running through her as she stared at the uncanny text. Her breath hitched in her throat, a silent gasp, and the words on the page instantly updated, reflecting her reaction. The ink shimmered, still wet, as if freshly applied, confirming the chilling immediacy of the narration. The book was a living chronicle, a self-writing prophecy, documenting their every move, every thought. It felt like an invasive gaze, a violation of their privacy, their actions, predetermined, observed. Pax felt a surge of cold anger, a deep, unsettling feeling that their agency was being stolen, recorded. Stitch's cheerful demeanor vanished, replaced by a grim realization of the profound, dark magic at work. Tick's watch, for the first time, seemed to skip a beat, momentarily out of sync with the library's pulse. Moss felt a profound sense of unease, recognizing the subtle, powerful spell woven into the book's pages. This was the library's ultimate defense, not just hiding knowledge, but controlling the narrative itself. If their actions were already written, did they truly have free will in this strange, living world? The air crackled with a new tension, a philosophical horror mingling with the architectural unease. They were characters in a story they did not write, their destinies perhaps already sealed within these pages. The book seemed to pulse faintly, a low, rhythmic throb beneath the ancient leather cover. Luma gently touched the page, her fingers trembling, feeling the faint warmth of the freshly materialized ink. The words shifted again, describing her touch, her fear, her growing resolve in the face of this revelation. This was a direct challenge, an acknowledgement of their presence, and a warning of their predetermined fate. They were not merely repairing a building. They were battling a narrative, a powerful, self-aware system. The library was telling its own story, and they were merely supporting characters, its unwitting tools. But the crew possessed their own will, a stubborn refusal to be dictated by an inanimate object, however magical. They shared a silent reorganize, a collective decision to defy the book's chilling, prophetic claims. Their hands, though still trembling, gripped their tools with renewed determination, ready to rewrite their fate. The book continued to narrate, its words now reflecting their defiance, their internal struggle for autonomy. It was a silent conversation, a battle of wills between the living architecture and the determined fix-it crew. They would not be mere maintenance spirits. They would be the authors of their own unwritten future. Luma, her mind racing, devised a strategy to restore quiet without engaging the library's siphoning mechanism. She began installing passive dampeners, intricate devices made from neutral materials, disconnected from the grid. These dampeners absorbed sound vibrations, converting them into inert thermal energy, dissipating them harmlessly. They were designed to function independently, offering no energy or quiet for the library to consume. Each dampener was a tiny act of rebellion, a silent refusal to feed the building's insatiable hunger. Luma worked with focused intensity, her movements precise, her determination unwavering against the written word. The air around each installed dampener felt subtly different, a tiny pocket of genuine, unstolen peace. Pax, meanwhile, began rebuilding the wall layers where insulation had been cleanly removed, using neutral materials. He shows them in inert composites that offer no energetic resonance for the library to siphon or manipulate. Each layer was carefully placed, creating a barrier against the intrusive noise, a shield of true quiet. He worked methodically, his powerful hands shaping the new walls, defying the claw-like tool marks of extraction. The process was slow, painstaking, but each completed section resonated with a quiet strength, a silent victory. The new walls felt solid, unyielding, a stark contrast to the library's shifting, deceptive architecture. Stitch, with his intuitive understanding of energy flows, crafted ingenious false quiet traps. These were subtle, shimmering conduits designed to redirect any siphoned quiet into dead, inert spaces. The traps created an illusion of quiet, a false positive for the library's hungry sensors, leading it astray. He carefully embedded them within the existing structure, invisible to the eye, but potent in their purpose. Each trap was a decoy, a clever misdirection, preventing the library from consuming genuine serenity. The air around the traps felt eerily still, a profound, almost artificial silence that fooled the building. Tick, overseeing the operation, meticulously monitored the library's energy fluctuations and temporal shifts. He observed the library's subtle reactions, its attempts to counteract their efforts to reassert its control. The 333 feeding cycle became less pronounced, the momentary quiet less potent, as their repairs took hold. The book on the floor, though still open, began to narrate their progress with a hint of bewildered frustration. Its words described the maintenance spirit's cunning, their unexpected defiance of its predetermined script. This was a battle of wits, a dance between human ingenuity and the library's ancient, sentient will. The crew worked in synchronized harmony, a silent symphony of defiance against the oppressive, consuming architecture. Each screw, each panel, each carefully placed trap was a statement of their unwavering resolve. The library seemed to groan in protest, a low, structural rumble echoing through the increasingly quiet halls. The pervasive din began to recede, replaced by a subtle, growing hush, a fragile, nascent tranquility. It wasn't the sudden, gulping quiet of the library's feeding cycle, but a steady, earned peace. The air felt lighter, less oppressive, as the true quiet slowly, painstakingly, returned to the library. Moss felt the building's hunger abate, its predatory hum softening into a confused, frustrated murmur. The shelves still shifted, but with less conviction, their movements becoming more hesitant, less aggressive. The fading labels paused, their erasure, their blurred letters hovering on the brink of reappearance. They were winning, slowly but surely reclaiming the library's essence from its corrupted purpose. The book on the floor lay open, its narrative now struggling to keep pace with their unpredictable actions. It described their unforeseen resilience, their stubborn refusal to conform to the established order. A sense of cautious optimism permeated the crew, a fragile hope that they could truly rewrite this story. The library's grip on its stolen quiet was loosening, its power diminishing with each successful repair. They knew the fight wasn't over, but they had found a way to resist, to mend without feeding the system. The silence they were restoring was authentic, untainted by the library's insidious, consuming magic. It was a quiet born of their own hands, a testament to their unwavering belief in true knowledge. The very atmosphere of the library began to subtly change, shedding its cloak of agitated noise. A deep, resonant peace began to settle, a quiet that invited contemplation, not irritation. The faint, high-pitched hum that Stitch had detected earlier was now almost entirely gone, replaced by stillness. They felt the building's internal struggle, its ancient stone resisting the forced return of its lost tranquility. But their methods were effective, circumventing the library's defenses, reclaiming its stolen serenity. The book on the floor vibrated slightly, its pages rustling with what seemed like growing agitation. Its narrative became more fragmented, less coherent. Struggling to account for their unpredictable triumphs, they pressed on, emboldened by their progress, knowing that true quiet was within their reach. The library's once powerful spell of noise began to unravel, thread by thread, under their persistent efforts. A profound sense of accomplishment settled over them, mingled with the lingering awareness of the library's sentient will. With a pervasive shin finally subdued, a deeper, more resonant quiet began to fill the vast library halls. The absence of noise was profound, a palpable presence, inviting introspection rather than agitation. The crew paused, taking a collective breath, feeling the genuine silence settle around them like a soft blanket. The book on the floor now lay still, its narrative having ceased, seemingly unable to describe this new, unscripted quiet. With the library's defenses weakened, Luma noticed a subtle misalignment in a previously unmoving shelf. She pressed against it, and with a soft click, a hidden section of the wall receded, revealing a sealed cabinet. The cabinet was old, made of dark, unvarnished wood, and secured with an intricate, almost forgotten lock. Pax, using a specialized tool, carefully picked the lock, its tumblers clicking softly in the profound quiet. The cabinet door swung open, revealing a collection of dusty, unassuming manuals, their titles stark. They found texts on social pressure regulation, detailing methods to subtly influence public opinion and behavior. Another manual, chillingly titled Memory Smoothing, outlined techniques for selective communal forgetting. These were not books of knowledge, but blueprints for control, tools for shaping a docile populace. Stitch, his expression grim, recognized the insidious nature of these volumes, their power over free thought. Moss, his gaze drawn to a smaller, brightly colored book, picked it up with a sense of quiet dread. It was a children's book, innocently titled How to Forget Safely, its cover depicting smiling, empty-eyed figures. The contrast between the cheerful facade and the ominous content sent a shiver down their spines. This was the Foundation's true purpose, not just to build, but to control, to erase, to dictate memory. The hidden titles revealed a deeper, more sinister agenda, a calculated suppression of inconvenient truths. They understood the library's hunger for quiet was a tool to prevent critical thinking, to foster compliance. The silence they had restored was more than just soundproofing. It was a revival of mental autonomy. As they gathered the recovered manuals, a figure emerged from the shadows, a librarian, pale and trembling. Her eyes were wide with a desperate fear, her hands clasped together in a plea for them to stop. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the restored quiet. "If you fix it, they'll punish us." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken threats. revealing the true cost of their intervention. The crew exchanged shocked glances, realizing the library staff were not willing participants, but coerced victims. They were prisoners within their own workplace, forced into compliance by an unseen, powerful authority. The librarian's fear was palpable, a chilling testament to the Foundation's pervasive, silent control. She begged them to leave the quiet broken, to abandon their mission, to save themselves from retribution. Her plea revealed the dark underbelly of FluffTown, where even acts of kindness carried a heavy price. Tick's watch, which had been steady since the quiet returned, suddenly began to tick in an unnerving rhythm. It synchronized with a faint, almost imperceptible pulse emanating from the library's ancient, living structure. The rhythm felt like a leash, a subtle, binding connection between the building and its unwilling staff. He realized the library was not just a place of knowledge. It was a prison? It's quiet! A tool of enforcement! The librarian's eyes darted nervously, her fear a constant companion, a shadow clinging to her every movement. The crew felt a profound sadness, understanding the depth of the Foundation's manipulative power over its citizens. They could not abandon their mission. The quiet had to be restored, even if it brought consequences. Their resolve hardened, recognizing the greater good, the necessity of freeing minds from silent coercion. The librarian, seeing their unwavering determination, wilted, a look of resigned despair clouding her features. She understood their path, but feared the inevitable punishment, the unseen hand that would reach out. The library, once a beacon of learning, now stood revealed as a subtle, insidious instrument of control. The weight of this revelation settled upon the crew, making their victory feel bittersweet, dangerous. True quiet now reigned, deep and profound, a stark contrast to the agitated clamor of earlier. Students, initially hesitant, slowly returned to the reading rooms, drawn by the newfound serenity. Their breathing changed, becoming deeper, more relaxed, a collective sigh of relief filling the air. With the quiet restored, minds began to stir, thoughts previously suppressed now bubbling to the surface. Soft arguments started, questions formed, and debates blossomed among the scholars. A renaissance of thought. The library felt colder, not in temperature, but with a crisp, intellectual clarity, a sense of liberation. It was a freedom of mind, a space where ideas could truly flourish, unburdened by imposed silence. The quiet was a catalyst, awakening dormant critical faculties, sparking genuine, independent inquiry. The mayor, however, viewed this awakening with alarm, labeling the vibrant discussions as unrest. He saw not an awakening, but a disruption, a dangerous deviation from the town's carefully managed tranquility. For the Foundation, true quiet was a threat, a breeding ground for dissent, for inconvenient truths. The crew watched, a sense of triumph mixed with trepidation. As FluffTown's intellectual landscape shifted, the library was no longer a silent prison. It was a vibrant forum, a hub of burgeoning, free thought. But the mayor's reaction signaled the Foundation's watchful eye, its swift, punitive response to defiance. The quiet they had restored was a double-edged sword, a blessing for the citizens, a curse for the powerful. The air thrummed with the energy of new ideas, a vibrant counterpoint to the Foundation's desired stillness. This was the cost of the spell. Freedom of thought, but also the inevitable, challenging friction it created. The library, once a tool of suppression, now stood as a monument to awakened consciousness. The Fix-It crew had not just fixed a building, they had ignited a spark of independent thought. In the profound, restored quiet, a soft, almost imperceptible click echoed through the vast space. It came from one of the previously shifting bookshelves, now standing still, its secrets exposed. A single, unassuming book, spine, nestled among ancient texts, clicked inward like a hidden switch. The book, previously unnoticed, slowly slid open, revealing stark white, utterly blank pages within. Then, before their astonished eyes, a single phrase began to print itself, ink blooming on the empty page. The letters formed with deliberate slowness, each character a whisper made visible. Exit is down. The words resonated with chilling clarity, a direct message, a cryptic clue to a deeper mystery. It suggested a hidden path, a subterranean route, a way out of FluffTown, or perhaps a different kind of exit. The thorn key, hidden deep within Stitch's pocket from a previous adventure, began to vibrate. A low, persistent hum emanated from the ancient artifact, a familiar energy stirring within its sharp points. The key pulsed with a soft, internal light, responding to the newly revealed message. The whisper from the book. Its vibrations grew stronger, a silent beacon guiding them towards the cryptic instruction, the hidden way. The crew stared at the glowing words, then at Stitch's vibrating key, a profound realization dawning. The library, even in its quietude, still held secrets, still offered glimpses into the true nature of their world. The phrase was a direct invitation, a challenge, a promise of escape, or perhaps a new, terrifying journey. They knew their path led downwards into the unknown, towards an exit that was more than just a door. The thorn key hummed, a silent call to adventure, pulling them towards the unseen, subterranean passage. The mystery deepened, the stakes raised, as the true nature of FluffTown's living map began to unravel. Their quest was far from over. The blueprint of escape had just been whispered, subtly, into existence. The library's final gift, or its ultimate trap, lay waiting beneath their feet, promising an uncertain fate. The glowing words faded, leaving only the memory of the message and the insistent thrum of the thorn key. Their decision loomed, a choice between the known dangers above and the whispered promise of the deep. The air crackled with anticipation, the weight of their next move hanging heavy in the newfound silence. The thorn key pulsed with a desperate, undeniable urgency, guiding them towards the unknown. A shiver ran through the crew, a mixture of dread and an unyielding, curious determination. The silent library now held a new, profound secret, a gateway to the very heart of the Foundation. They stood at the precipice of a new journey, guided by a whisper and a vibrating relic. The ominous words on the page beckoned them forward into the shadowed depths below. Each pulse of the thorn key echoed the call, a magnetic pull towards the hidden, forbidden exit. They exchanged resolute glances, understanding the gravity of the path now laid before them. The quiet library held its breath, awaiting their decision. The next move in a much larger game. Their courage would be tested, their resolve challenged in the dark passages that lay ahead. The true cost of this knowledge, this whispered route, was yet to be fully revealed. Their journey into the unknown depths was about to begin, guided by the cryptic exit is down. The very air seemed to thicken with destiny, a silent promise of what awaited them below. They gripped their tools, ready to descend, embracing the perilous, alluring call of the deep. The thorn key glowed, a final, instant beacon, leading them towards FluffTown's deepest, darkest secret.